Hello everyone. In this video we are going to create a toggle switch by using HTML and CSS. This is actually a simple thing but kind of tricky. So in here in the index.html file, let's create the markup. I am just going to create a label with the class of switch, and we don't need to add any for here. So inside this, let's create an input, and the type of the input will be checkbox. We don't need any name or ID. So now we are going to create an span with the class of slider. We actually need this span to create the checkbox because in here this is our checkbox. We are going to hide the default checkbox and create our own switch by this class. So let's get into the style.css and start designing it. At first we need to hide the existing checkbox, so it's inside the switch class and has an input. So let's target it, switch and input. Let's make it opacity 0, so now it will be invisible, so there is no input field here. Now we are going to target the switch element, so let's do that. I am going to give it a display of inline block, also a width and height. We need to give this width and height because we are going to give this a position relative, and the child element of this switch is this slider, and we are going to make it position absolute. So let's do that. Let's give it a width of 60 pixels maybe, and height of maybe 35 pixels. Let's also give it a position of relative because we are going to give this slider a position of absolute. So let's do that. Let's give it a position of absolute. Now let's do some modifications. Let's give it a background color. So let's give it kind of grayish color, CCC. We cannot see anything here because we need to give it a specific position. So there are 4 directions, right? Top, left, right and bottom. So we are going to make all of this 0. Top, bottom also 0. Let's do the left and right also 0. Now here we go. It is only taking this height and width of its parent element, which is this switch, and it got the height of 35 pixels and width of 60 pixels. But if you want to make it kind of rounded, we can also do that. We can add an border radius here. So let's try adding a border radius of 35 pixels maybe. Now it got this rounded corners and things. Okay, now what do you want here? Nothing else for now. So we need to create the switch now. So whenever we click on that, it is going to slide. So we can use a pseudo element to make this happen. So let's do that. Slider, and I'm going to use the before pseudo element. So at first we need to give this a position of absolute because we are going to make it positioned relative to this switch element, which is the parent element here. And also we need to give this a content of blank. Now we can give this a background color. Let's give this a background color of white. Now we need to give this a specific position, right, and also a specific size. So let's give it a height of maybe 25 pixels and also a width of the same. Now here we go. This is the square shape. In order to make this completely rounded or circle, we can give this a border radius of maybe 50%. The 50% will make any square shape completely rounded, and here we go. Now in order to position it, we can push it from the left a little bit. So let's say 4 pixels, and from the top also, or maybe use the bottom on here, the same amount. Let's see how this works. Actually we can make it kind of bigger. Let's try 26 and 26 pixels. Okay, here we go. This is our Swiss. Everything is fine, but if we click here, nothing's happened. So whenever we click this circle here, we want to make this push at the right side, and if we click it again, it is going to go back to the left side. So by default we have this input of checkbox, right? It is invisible, but it is there. So we are going to use the checked property of this. So whenever we click this, the checkbox is going to be checked, and if it checked, then this circle here is going to the right side, and if it is unchecked, then it is going to come back to the left. So how we can do that? It is actually pretty simple. So we got this input, right? And if it checked, we can check this by this here. So it is going to check if the input is checked or not. If this is going to be checked, then we need to target this slider. So how we can do that? In CSS it is pretty easy. We need to use an plus here and target this slider. So it is a class, so slider, and this is how this works. It is going to get the input field and see if it is checked or not, and if it is checked, only when it is going to target the element with the class of slider just after this input field. So it is just after that line of this input, right? So it is going to target the slider, and whenever we touch that, whenever we check the input field, we are going to add some transform effect. So we are going to use the translate to push it to the right. So it is the x direction. Let's put it 26 pixels, so it will going to be pushed at the right side by 26 pixels. But this is not going to work because we have added this thing. The circle here is actually the before, not the slider itself. So we need to target the before here. Now let's save and try clicking it here, and it is going to slide to the right, and again if we click it, it is going to get back to its previous position. So in order to make this slow, we can add a transition with this before. So let's try 0.4 second. Now it should be slower like that. Let's say we want to change the background color of this slider or this entire thing whenever it is checked. So it will be the same thing. So I'm just going to copy this, but in this case we only need to target the slider, and it has this background color of this grayish color. So we are going to change the background color here. So let's try an bluish color 2on96F3. Now this looks fine. So this is actually very easy, and I hope you find this interesting. So if you like this video, please don't forget to subscribe, give this video a thumbs up. Thank you very much for watching, and see you in the next video.